Hello! Today we're going to look at a few hands from EPT Cyprus, but we won't focus so much on the play, but more on how to analyze hands using the Poker Academy app. In most of my previous videos I used custom sims that are very precise and were imported to the app from HRC. If you don't know how to do it, there is a short tutorial on our channel and you can find it here. It's a very nice feature if you want to get very accurate ranges, especially on final tables, where every stack size matters. But in many spots, it's not worth the effort. There are many pre-solved scenarios available in our app, and in today's video I want to show you how you could use them to save your time and still get very good results in a matter of seconds. First hand took place at the start of day 2 of a tournament. This is a new table after a redraw, so probably players don't have a lot of information about others' play. This is a spot where sticking to solid preflop ranges is most important, because it's impossible to exploit anyone. Action starts with a raise from an early position with King 8 suited. And at first sight this looks pretty close. He got 3-bet by a player on hijack and folded. Now we could enter all details in HRC, spend half of a day on solving and check final results. But in this kind of situation we can just go to the app and check similar spots. Our hand took place with around 40% of the field left. We have a category with 50% of the field remaining with asymmetric stacks, so let's take a look at what's there. Of course, we won't find the exact same scenario, but we should scan them to find the most similar one. Sometimes it's good to take a look at 2 or 3 to have a better idea. Here I see a few scenarios that could give us pretty accurate strategies. Let's look at the second one. We have 22 bigs on UTG and big stack that could 3-bet us on cutoff. Positions are a bit off, but it should give us an idea. We can see here that on 22 big blinds, King 8 suited is on the bottom of our opening range. But in real hand we are one position closer to the button, so we can comfortably assume that King 8 suited is a correct open here. Solver wants to raise with 17.5% of hands. When we look at 3-betting range, we can see that it consists 6.2% of hands, and ace-queen off actually calls most of the time, but raising is okay too. Now we have an idea, but let's look at another similar scenario. In this situation, positions are correct, but our stack is a bit smaller. Here we can see that we can open 19.8%, so a bit more, and the 3-betting player still wants to 3-bet exactly the same amount, 6.2%. But here he prefers to raise with most combos of ace-queen off. I solved this scenario with exactly the same stacks, payouts and face of the tournament as in real hand, and here are the final results. We can see that we could open 20% of hands and hijack should 3-bet us with 6.4% of hands. So these very accurate results that took many hours to get are almost the same as the solves we already had in the app. Let's see another hand that took place a few hours later. There are 240 players left with 191 places paid. We see a raise from an early position and we're in Simon Wiciak's shoes on big blind. Should we defend this pretty looking hand? We don't have an exact scenario with 20% of the field left, so let's take a look at what we can find in the 17.5% category. Let me check this scenario with big blind on 18 bigs and raise from player on EP that covers us. We can see that it's pretty close and the solver calls most combos of 7-5 suited. We should 3-bet here with a little bit less than 8% of hands. Now let's look at another scenario where we have a few more big blinds, but our opponent has a bigger stack and is in the same position as in real hand. Here we can see that 7-5 suited is still on the bottom of calling range and we should 3-bet a little bit more than 8%. We can also check a scenario where we have 15 bigs on symmetric stacks. Also here 7-5 suited is calling and there are even some 7-4 suited. There is much more 3-betting and it makes sense, because in this scenario we have a lot bigger fold equity against stack that can also bust before bubble. But the overall range that we should continue is very similar and it's around 30% of hands. So based on these three scenarios, we can be pretty sure that 7-5 suited should be around the bottom of our calling range. Now let's see these exact hands solved in HRC with all correct stacks and hand details. We can see that this range looks very similar. It calls a few percent more, but it makes sense because we're a bit more far away from the bubble, so our bubble factor is a little bit smaller. Our 3-bet is close to 8% we saw earlier, and 7-5 suited is close to our bottom of calling range. Now let's see the last hand, which takes place almost on a direct bubble. We're 5 spots away from the money in a big field tournament. Action starts with a raise from early position from big stack and flat call from another big stack on the cutoff. Now action is on former WSOP and EPT champion Hossein Ensan with 8 big blinds left. This is a very intense ICM spot, but should he fold to the money or go for it? Let's go to our scenarios on direct bubble, and we have one that should fit almost like a glove. We have some big stacks here and small blind with 6 big blinds. Here we can see that he should be folding ace-10 off and continue only with less than 6% of hands. Let's take a look at another closest scenario. Here we have a few more blinds, but our range versus 2 big stacks stays more or less the same, with a little bit more than 6% of hands this time. This spot is a bit better because we have some fold equity. After these two scenarios we've checked, we can be pretty sure that squeezing with ace-10 off is a mistake. Now let's look at this exact spot that I imported from HRC. Here we can see that it's not that close, we should be much tighter than in the previous scenario. So jamming ace-10 off in reality is even worse. Why is that? We have to look at bubble factor here. It's extremely high and it's more than 3 against everyone. And it's because it's a big field tournament, so 8 big blinds in reality almost guarantees that we get to the money without playing a hand. In our pre-solved scenarios we have a smaller field tournament, where there is a much bigger chance that we will blind out before we get into the money if we just keep folding our hands, so bubble factor is smaller. Ensan decided to gamble here, and probably it's a case of being too rich to fold. As you can see, using only pre-solved scenarios is a very viable method to check hands, especially in early stages of a tournament. We are still adding more and more scenarios, so it's getting easier to get even more accurate results. And to be honest, when we are studying poker, we don't really need very precise results. It's almost impossible to remember all the exact ranges, and even if we could, it wouldn't help us much. Because poker is such a beautiful game in which we never play the same hand twice. It's much more important to get the sense when we should widen or tighten our range and be in the right ballpark, and striving to get every combo right in every single situation in a game with so many variables is a road to failure. Also today I've got something special for you. We're giving away a free 1-month subscription to Poker Academy. Don't miss that opportunity and check the pinned comment below. I hope you liked this video. In the next ones you can expect going back to our format where we focus on analyzing some more interesting hands. Don't forget to subscribe and see you next time. Bye.